What's going on, gardeners? On today's video, I'm going to talk about a very specific subject that I never see mentioned. I'm going to talk about the problem with nursery transplants that nobody is talking about. After you watch today's video, you may think twice before you ever buy transplants from a nursery again.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
If there is one thing that I have tried to be consistent across my garden channel from day one, it is the importance of starting your own crops from seed and how much better it is overall than buying transplants from a nursery. And in fairness, a lot of other gardening channels try to make that same argument. However, I think the best argument for starting your own plants from seed is rarely made. But before I get into the meat of this video, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. This is not a knock on small independent nurseries that are doing everything right and they are making proper plant selections for their area. This is a knock on lazy gardening culture in general and shortcuts that make absolutely no sense. So please, before you draw any conclusions, watch this video in its entirety so you get the full context, or at least watch the bulk of the video until I make all of the critical points. The most common reason why gardeners recommend we start our own plants from seed is most often price. I mean, have you ever gone to a big box store and looked at the cost of transplants these days? It is insane. Individual crops can cost as much as $5 to $6 per plant, and a 6-pack of cool crops can run you $6. You're talking about $1 per plant. At that price, you can just go to a grocery store and buy the finished produce. I mean, compare that to a seed packet off of a seed stand. $2 to $3 a packet. You can start yourself an entire flat of crops for less money than one individual plant from a box store. It's nuts. But the truth of the matter is, upfront cost is not a great argument. Number one, most people are not gardening to save money. They are gardening for their health and for their taste buds, because what we grow in our gardens tastes way better and it's way healthier than the stuff we get at a grocery store. So the real argument is, hey, Anthony, I'm not going out and buying one seed packet of one variety. I want to grow 4, 5, 6 different varieties of tomatoes, so you actually have to multiply that price by 4, 5, or 6, and then I have all these leftover seeds that I'm doing nothing with. Then I have to go out and I have to buy seedling germination mats, I have to buy grow lights, I have to dedicate a section of my house that is going to be a footprint for that grow station. I have to have seed trays, I have to have seed tray bottoms, watering equipment. It's a ton of work and it is a lot of indirect costs. And I don't go to the big box stores and buy these outrageously inflated prices. I go to my local nursery where they sell the varieties for half the cost. So you think you're saving all this money? It's not as much as you think. So the extra money that we are paying for convenience is worth it. And in fairness, that is all true. We are not going to change many people's hearts and minds by telling them that simply starting things from seed is going to save them money, because this all boils down to a lot more than money. In this tray right now, I have 72 cool weather transplants. They're things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, lettuce, all sorts of things. And I did start all of the stuff in this tray for less price than one 6-pack of transplants at a big box store. This whole thing probably cost me $3 to $4 worth of seeds and potting mix. But in fairness, I have accumulated all of this infrastructure and built my grow light station and things like that over many years. So I have long since absorbed these indirect costs. But money isn't the only reason to avoid most transplants from the big nurseries out there. Now, I have heard this strange argument over recent years that basically compare the transplants that you get from nurseries to drug addicts, in the sense that they're pumped full of so many synthesized fertilizers to keep them growing in basically the inert soil that when you get them, they're going to be basically all roided up, and then you're going to put them in the ground and they're going to basically have a sugar crash because your soil isn't all full of those synthesized chemicals that they're pumping their plants full of. And to that I say, That's utter nonsense. That's just nothing but scare tactics. I don't know how anybody can make an argument like that, because I don't think there is any scientific basis to that. Now, for me personally, I start all of my seedlings in my office upstairs. And I'm not bringing in stinky organic fertilizers like bone meal or fish fertilizer or something like that into my office. It will reek. I won't want to be in there. So what I actually give my transplants is diluted Jack's 20-20-20, which is a synthesized fertilizer, and a little bit of azomite, because I need to give them something and I don't want my house to reek badly. And you know what? Everything I put out in my garden, it grows absolutely fine. So I've never seen any evidence of the sort that your plants are going to be addicted to some kind of fertilizer that you then try and pick up organically in your garden and they're not going to grow. I think that's mostly nonsense and fear-mongering. If you disagree and you have evidence to the contrary, please drop some comments down with some links to support the claim, but I've seen nothing to support such a hypothesis like that. The real reason why I believe it is not advantageous to buy the bulk of your transplants from nurseries is the lack of variety selection. I have learned this over the years the hard way. Variety selection is everything when it comes to success in your garden, because you need to grow the varieties of crops that are proven to do well in your unique climate. So if you go to a nursery, a lot of times they are all importing the same plants, the same small handful of varieties nationwide. So when you purchase them and you put them in your garden, chances are they are not going to do very well. Over the years, I have grown over 200 different varieties of tomatoes alone in my garden. And you know why I have grown so many varieties of tomatoes? Because here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, where we have brutally hot, wet, and humid summers, almost all tomatoes fail to grow here. And it has taken me 8 years and hundreds of varieties to narrow them down to 15 or 20 varieties that actually do well in my climate. We're talking about single-digit success rates, actually planting tomatoes that can handle the conditions here. And you know what they all have in common? I have never seen any of them available for purchase at a nursery, at least a big box type nursery. So had I only planted what I could get at the stores, nothing would do well. I have had to hunt and search for many years to find what actually works here. And by the way, if you want to see that video, I'll link to it both above and down in the video description, where I taste test all of these really excellent, tough, hardy tomato varieties. But that's not all. I've grown probably at least 50 different varieties of peppers over the years to find out not only what I really like to eat the most, but what does the best in my garden. What about cucumbers? I've grown a few dozen, and over my hunt through a decade of growing dozens of different varieties of cucumbers, I found these incredible parthenocarpic varieties of cucumbers. They produce fruit without any pollination at all. So now I have this ludicrous production of often seedless fruit that produce underneath insect netting. I don't have to worry about bees. I can have 0 cucumber beetles in my yard and garden because I am able to grow these without any threat to insect pests. This same research and trial and error has also led me to a variety of zucchini called Dunja that is also partially parthenocarpic, so it can set some of its fruit without pollination. So I can grow my zucchini plants underneath insect netting, and I won't have to worry about things like vine borers or squash bugs anymore, and this incredible fruit will still set some of its crop and hold it to maturity. Can you say game changer? And don't even get me started on basil. Every single year I would lose my entire basil crop in late summer, early fall to a horrible disease called downy mildew. Well, last year I discovered a revolutionary new line of basil called Prospera, which is the first basil bred with a high resistance to downy mildew, and this has been an absolute game changer. Now all of my plants are perfect and disease-free and absolutely gigantic. If I were to have just planted any old basil from a nursery or planted a basil plant that I bought in a grocery store, they would all be dead by now. But because I did my research and I grew the right seeds from seed, my basil crop is unstoppable this year. But that's not all. Being a dedicated seed grower has opened my eyes to this whole world of different fruits and vegetables out there that I have never even heard of, or rare varieties that I never would have considered. Things like these incredible chocolate Trinidad scorpion peppers. Who wants to hurt themselves by eating something like this? Apparently I do. It has opened my eyes to rare fruits that I've never heard of, like the Kajari melon, which is one of my favorite discoveries in my backyard summer garden. Legendary herbs like holy basil, which isn't well known to the West. These incredible African eggplants that have absolutely blew me away, and they're virtually indestructible here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. The absolutely epic Rampicante squash that I showed you how to grow earlier this season. And so much more. In fact, every single year I make it a point to grow at least one new thing that I have never heard of before in my garden, just to try something new and expand my horizons a little bit. Life is too short to eat the same stuff over and over since we were a little kid. And if you just go to nurseries, that is all you're going to get. You're just going to get the mainstream stuff that we've seen in every single boring grocery store since we were children. You have to try new things. That is what keeps gardening so exciting. It's that trial and error, that science, that fascination that every year you get to learn something new. That is why I do this, and that is why I love it so much. But just to reiterate, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't support your local nurseries, and I'm not even saying that you should start everything from seed. What I am saying is, for the things that are difficult for you to grow in your climate, and we all have those things, that is when you should really consider starting things from seed. For example, if you live in the Mid-Atlantic or in the Pacific Northwest or areas of the West where there's very low humidity and you have almost no issues with tomato diseases or tomato production, and they're easy for you to grow, then maybe that is something that you should go to local nurseries for and get the varieties and not go through the trouble of starting them from seed if you find their prices and their selection to be affordable and very good. Maybe in those same climates, though, you have trouble growing spring and fall crops because you find it goes from winter to summer in the blink of an eye. So things like broccoli or cabbage, well, maybe they're too hard for you to grow if you just get plain old nursery transplants. If that is the case, maybe you should go out and you should source some hybrid varieties that are specifically well adapted to your climate, or something with a more appropriate days to maturity that you can find in the mainstream. Because I'm a fairly experienced gardener and my garden is very large, I start virtually 100% of everything from seed, but I also live in a climate where it's very hard to grow almost everything. Our summers are too hot, our winters are too cold. Pretty much the only thing that's easy to grow here are peas, carrots, and radishes. So for that stuff, I can just grab whatever I want off the shelf. But a lot of the other things, I have to be selective with. So the way that you get really good and the way that you maximize your climate and you have absolutely incredible production that lasts and lasts throughout the year is by trying different varieties of things. It's not by growing the same old stuff that anybody can get their hands on. You have to be selective. And when you try dozens of different varieties of things, you will eventually find things that work in your climate that you otherwise thought was impossible. And as an added bonus, you will open your eyes to new and exotic things that you have never heard of before, that once you fall in love with it, you'll wonder how you've ever gone throughout your life without it. And last but not least, there is just a certain amount of pride that comes along with knowing that we did all of this from ourselves, from the bottom up. Yes, pride can be a very negative emotion, but not in this context, because in this context, we are proud of our growth, of our achievements. We have taught ourselves that yes, we can do it. We are smarter and more capable than we think we are. And when you have pride that builds you up, well, that's something that you often like to share with others, because then you teach other people that, hey, if I can do this, you can do this too, and you can't help but spread the positive message. This is pride that leads to positivity. So I really want to encourage every single one of you that you can do this. I am nothing special. I am no smarter or more capable than anybody else. And if I'm able to do all this, I know you can too. It's just putting in the effort and putting in the work. And if you're willing to do that, you can have incredible success. So again, if you have local nurseries that you find have a great selection selection and they are selecting varieties of things that are highly appropriate for your area and they are known to do well, please, by all means, if you don't like starting from seed, support your local nurseries that are doing things the right way. If you have specific crops that are very difficult to grow in your climate, like I really struggle with tomatoes here, well then maybe those are the things that you should go out and run a whole bunch of trial and error with on different varieties of seeds. And then for your local nurseries, you can get the varieties of things that tend to do well no matter what, so you can support them. But I just wanted to throw this message out there because the real reason why we want to grow from seed, it's not necessarily a money thing. It's not because the plants we get from nurseries are inferior, but it's because you get a wider selection of things and you can choose things that are better adapted to your climate, so you will have a much better chance for success than if you just go and grab something off the shelf at a random store. Now that being said, if you're curious where I buy my seeds, I support all different types of seed exchanges across the internet. I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description for some of my favorite places that I've purchased seeds from over the years. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring the notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. For everything I use in real life in my garden, all of the different products that help me be successful, all of those things are linked in my Amazon storefront, so expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, and you'll see everything I use in my garden in real life. And while you're down there, please consider checking out my spread shop for custom merchandise if you want to support my channel. I just released a whole bunch of homemade custom designs. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Dale's nose has been absolutely out of control today. It is dripping all over the place. He just wants to smell every single square inch of everything. Look at all that nose juice. We have ourselves a really nice late summer day. The weather's starting to get really great here in southeastern North Carolina. Finally, it's cooling off. We're getting to the 60s in the night. And Dale is just loving life. He's coming back alive with the cooler weather. And he will not let our walks end. He just wants to sniff.